Arsenal's 15 biggest transfer flops ever. The signings that cost millions but never lived up to the billing. Every Arsenal fan wants the club to spend big every transfer window. Most Gunners aren't happy with the way the champions are treating the transfer window this summer, especially as rival clubs are due. But history has taught us one painful lesson. Not every expensive signing becomes a success. Over the years, Arsenal have spent millions on players who arrived with enormous expectations, but left supporters wondering what went wrong. Now, before we begin, this isn't a list of the worst footballers Arsenal have ever signed. Every player on this list had talent and enjoyed success somewhere in their career. Instead, this ranking is based on 6 factors: how much Arsenal paid, the expectations when they arrived, their performances, how long they stayed, their overall impact, and whether Arsenal recovered their investment. Let's begin. Number 15, Lucas Perez. In 2016, Arsenal signed Lucas Perez from Deportivo La Coruña for around £17 million. He had just scored 17 La Liga goals and was expected to provide serious competition in attack. Instead, he struggled to earn regular minutes behind Alexis Sanchez, Olivier Giroud, and Theo Walcott. Although he showed flashes of quality, he never became a first-choice striker. After just one season, Arsenal sold him back to Deportivo for a significantly lower fee, meaning the club made a financial loss on the transfer. Sometimes, good players simply arrive at the wrong club at the wrong time. Number 14, Park Chu-young. Signed in 2011 from AS Monaco for around £3 million, Park was one of Asia's biggest stars. Arsenal fans expected another clever signing from Arsene Wenger. Instead, Park barely played. Across 2 seasons, he made only a handful of appearances before spending time on loan and eventually leaving on a free transfer. Arsenal recovered virtually nothing from the investment. It remains one of the most forgettable transfers of the Wenger era. Number 13, André Santos. When Gaël Clichy left for Manchester City in 2011, Arsenal needed a reliable replacement. They turned to Brazilian left-back André Santos, signing him from Fenerbahce for around £6 million. While he occasionally contributed going forward, his defensive performances often came under criticism. His Arsenal career is also remembered for his controversial shirt swap with former captain Robin van Persie during a defeat to Manchester United. After around 2 years, Arsenal moved him on and recovered only a fraction of what they had invested. Number 12, Sebastian Squillaci. In 2010, Arsenal paid approximately £5 million to sign Sebastian Squillaci from Sevilla. He arrived with Champions League experience and was expected to strengthen a defense that desperately needed leadership. Instead, his lack of pace and repeated defensive mistakes made him a target of criticism. Within a short period, he had fallen completely out of favor. He stayed for about 3 seasons before leaving on a free transfer. Financially, Arsenal failed to recover the transfer fee. Number 11, Richard Wright. Many younger fans forget this transfer. Back in 2001, Arsenal spent around £6 million to sign England goalkeeper Richard Wright from Ipswich Town. He was expected to become David Seaman's long-term successor. Instead, Wright struggled with confidence, made several costly mistakes, and quickly lost his place. Just a year later, Arsenal sold him for considerably less than they had paid. It was one of the club's earliest examples of a high-profile signing failing to meet expectations. Number 10, Gervinho. After starring for Lille, Gervinho joined Arsenal in 2011 for roughly £10.5 million. Supporters expected pace, goals, and excitement. To be fair, he certainly brought pace. He regularly beat defenders and created chances. But his finishing frustrated fans time and time again. He spent 2 seasons at Arsenal before moving to Roma. Although Arsenal recovered the respectable transfer fee, many supporters still remember him as a player whose end product never matched his talent. Number 9, Francis Jeffers. When Arsene Wenger signed Francis Jeffers from Everton in 2001 for around £8 million, many believed Arsenal had secured one of England's brightest young strikers. Nicknamed the Fox in the Box, Jeffers arrived with enormous expectations. Unfortunately, injuries and inconsistent form destroyed his momentum. Across 4 seasons, he never established himself as Arsenal's main striker. The club eventually sold him for a much lower fee, making the transfer one of Wenger's biggest disappointments. Number 8, Alex Runarsson. Signed in 2020 from Dijon for approximately £1.5 million, Runarsson was brought in to provide reliable backup in goal. Instead, a series of costly mistakes quickly damaged confidence in him. Within months, Arsenal had already begun looking elsewhere. He spent much of his contract out on loan before leaving permanently. Although the fee was relatively small, the signing failed almost immediately and delivered virtually no value on the pitch. Coming up, the top 7 featuring the players who cost Arsenal the most in money, expectations and disappointments. And yes, one of them cost the club a then record £72 million, only to become one of the most debated transfers in Arsenal history. Number 7. Igor Stepanovs. At number 7 is Igor Stepanovs. Arsenal signed the Latvian defender in 2000 from Skonto Riga for a fee believed to be around £1 million. Compared to today's market, that wasn't a huge fee, but Arsene Wenger believed Stepanovs could develop into a dependable Premier League defender. Unfortunately, that never happened. He struggled with the pace and physicality of English football and became remembered for several difficult performances, including Arsenal's infamous 6-1 defeat to Manchester United in 2001. Although he remained at the club for about 4 years, most of that time was spent on loan or as a squad player. Arsenal eventually sold him for only a small fee, making little return on their investment. Number 6. Willian. Coming in at number 6 is Willian. In 2020, Arsenal signed the experienced Brazilian winger after his contract with Chelsea expired. Although there was no transfer fee, Arsenal reportedly handed him a lucrative 3-year contract worth around £220,000 per week, making him one of the club's highest earners. Expectations were enormous. He had just helped Chelsea qualify for the Champions League and was expected to bring leadership, creativity and consistency. His debut looked promising, producing 3 assists against Fulham, but that was as good as it got. Willian scored just 1 goal in all competitions during his only season at Arsenal. After just 1 year, both club and player agreed to terminate his contract early. While Arsenal didn't lose a transfer fee, they absorbed a significant wage cost for very little return, making the move one of the club's most disappointing pieces of business. Number 5. Shkodran Mustafi. At number 5 is Shkodran Mustafi. Arsenal signed the German World Cup winner from Valencia in 2016 for approximately £35 million. Fans believed the club had finally found the commanding centre-back they had needed for years. Initially, things looked promising. Mustafi even enjoyed a lengthy unbeaten run early in his Arsenal career, but over time, costly defensive mistakes, poor positioning, and lapses in concentration overshadowed his strengths. He spent almost 5 seasons at Arsenal, making more than 150 appearances, but he never fully convinced supporters. In 2021, he left the club by mutual agreement before joining Schalke on a free transfer. Arsenal recovered none of the original transfer fee. Number 4. Francis Jeffers. At number 4 is Francis Jeffers. When Arsenal paid around £8 million to sign him from Everton in 2001, he was regarded as one of England's brightest young strikers. Arsene Wenger famously believed Jeffers could become a future star. Instead, injuries repeatedly disrupted his progress. He scored only a handful of Premier League goals and never secured a regular starting place. After around 4 seasons, Arsenal sold him back to Everton for a much smaller fee. The financial loss wasn't enormous compared with modern transfers, but considering the expectations surrounding him, Jeffers remains one of Wenger's biggest transfer disappointments. Number 3, André Santos. At number 3 is André Santos. Although his transfer fee of around £6 million wasn't huge, the context makes this signing far more disappointing. He arrived in 2011 to replace the highly dependable Gaio Clichy. Supporters expected a reliable first-choice left-back. Instead, inconsistent defending and questionable decision-making meant he never truly won over Arsenal fans. His infamous shirt swap with Robin van Persie at halftime during a defeat to Manchester United became symbolic of a transfer that never lived up to expectations. After just over 2 seasons, Arsenal sold him for a modest fee, recovering only part of their investment. Number 2, Nicolas Pépé. At number 2 is Nicolas Pépé, signed from Lille in 2019 for a then club record fee of around £72 million. Pépé arrived with enormous expectations. Supporters believed Arsenal had finally landed a genuine superstar capable of transforming the attack. To be fair, Pépé wasn't a complete failure. He scored important goals, produced spectacular free kicks, and helped Arsenal win the 2020 FA Cup. Across 4 seasons, he contributed more than 25 goals in all competitions. But when a player costs £72 million, expectations are different. His inconsistency and the emergence of Bukayo Saka meant he never became the undisputed star Arsenal hoped for. In 2023, he left the club on a free transfer after his contract was terminated. Financially, Arsenal lost almost shows the entire value of one of the most expensive signings in their history. Number 1, the biggest Arsenal transfer flop. Our number 1 isn't based on who was the worst footballer. It's based on expectation versus outcome. And that honor goes to Nicolas Pépé, not because he lacked ability, not because he never produced moments of brilliance, but because Arsenal invested a record-breaking fee, expecting a player who would lead the club into a new era. Instead, the investment was never fully repaid, either on the pitch or financially. His transfer became a lesson that spending the most money doesn't always produce the biggest success. Looking back at these transfers, one thing becomes clear. Every one of these players arrived with hope. Every one of them had genuine talent. But football isn't played on paper. That's why today's Arsenal, under Mikel Arteta and the club's recruitment team, appear far more careful before committing huge sums in the transfer market. Sometimes, the best signing isn't the most expensive one. It's the one that fits the team. Now we want to hear from you. Who do you think is Arsenal's biggest transfer flop of all time? Would you put Pepe at number 1? Or do you think Mustafi, Willian, or someone else deserves that title? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join the Gunners Fortress, where Arsenal's past, present, and future are always up for debate.